Hi everyone. This video comes from a request to explain how I choose the location of my base, and another request to explain how I plan the general layout of my base. But anything I say about this topic will only be based on my opinion and personal preference. You can probably build your base almost anywhere depending on how you want to play and what resources are important to you. For me, whenever I choose the location of my base, I like to prioritize resources that I cannot relocate. For that reason, there are three biomes that I like to be close to. Obviously, I can't always have a base that is right next to all three of them, but I can usually find a location that is reasonably close to at least a few of the biomes. The first and most important biome for me that I like to be close to is the swamp area. The swamp area is where you will find the reeds, which is one of the resources that I like to gather which cannot be relocated. We don't need reeds in the same number that we do logs or grass, but it is still used to craft some very good items. There are also a lot of other very useful resources that are particularly helpful in the early game that I can find and gather by just walking around the swamp. Among these are food, silk, glands, and tentacle spikes. I don't even need to fight for these resources. The spiders, tentacles, and worms can do all the fighting for me. I also use the swamp early in the game the same way that some players use a beefalo herd. The swamp with all its mobs can easily kill the hounds for me. Later on, I can build a hound trap area or other things that can serve as my more permanent protection from hounds. The second biome that I like to be close to is a desert biome. I do this because of the tumbleweeds. Although the cactus are also a useful resource that cannot be relocated, it is really the tumbleweeds that I am after. The tumbleweeds are a quick way of gathering a lot of grass and twigs early in the game. At the same time, it will also provide a lot of early gold in the form of the trinkets that you can exchange for gold with the Pig King. And although it's only a small percentage, you can also find the very important gears from the tumbleweeds while you are gathering the grass, twigs, and gold in the process. Lastly, I like to be close to the Mosaic biome. This is the least important of the three biomes for me, but the constant meteors do provide a good renewable source of rocks, niter, flint, and moon rocks. There are other ways of getting these minerals, but having a source conveniently near my base does help a lot. A few other things that I also consider when choosing the location of my base are wormholes, the Pig King, and a cave entrance. The wormhole in my base leads to one of my hound trap areas, and it also brings me a little bit close to the Mosaic biome. But you can use wormholes for many different purposes, depending on where they lead and what you build on the other side. The Pig King is also useful. You can easily get gold almost any time you want if your base is located near the Pig King, but I only consider it a bonus and not a deciding factor when I choose a location. It's more coincidental in this world that the Pig King happened to be located in between the swamp and the desert. If it was located far away, I could limit the number of visits by bringing as many tradable items as possible to overstock on gold whenever I needed to trade. An actual deciding factor when I choose a location is that I must be near a cave entrance. I will almost always want a summer cave base which I will usually build very near where the cave entrance will lead. This will make moving between the two bases and using farms from either of them convenient. The cave entrance should be close enough to feel like the cave base is only an extension of my main base. Being in the center of the map seemed like an ideal location to me in previous games, but I realized after a while that there are only a few places in the entire map that I will frequently return to. These are the areas that I consider to be more important rather than trying to be in the center of everything. It was important for me to know when planning the layout of my base that certain events can only happen or will only happen more frequently when my character is near the area of the event. This gecko farm is a lot more productive when I am near it. The game has a mechanic that sort of freezes or slows down what can happen when we are not in the vicinity of an area. In the case of the gecko farm, the more time I spend near the area of the gecko farm, the more productive it will be. Therefore, I want the gecko farm closer to my main area where I will typically spend most of my time. My main area in the base will typically have the crockpots, the icebox, the chest area, the bird cage, and whatever else I frequently use like farms and drying racks. If an area of my base is affected positively by my being close to it, then I'll want it close to my main area. But there seem to be more negative events that can happen when I am close to an area. It doesn't take long for bee boxes to reach the maximum of 6 honey per box even if my bee box area is far away from my main area. But a significant negative for me is when the bees turn aggressive during spring. I can contain them with the fences as long as there is an exit that leads to a safe area for the aggressive bees. If there was no exit, the bees will ignore the fences completely and just fly over them. But even with the fences, a few bees will still manage to fly over the fences once in a while. A few angry bees might not seem like a big deal, but even a single bee can cause a lot of trouble if it attacks another mob in my base. So the bee boxes have a negative effect if it was too close to my main area. By keeping them far away, the movement of the bees will sort of freeze until I decide to go near the area again. It doesn't matter that I have a lot of mobs near the bee box area. It is how close I am to the bees that will determine whether or not they interact with the other mobs. A vault goat pen is another area that has a negative effect during spring that I normally want to avoid. The goats can attract lightning, and even if you place lightning rods near the goats, lightning can still strike them. A charged vault goat will turn highly aggressive and even attack any nearby walls or fences. Similar to freezing the events in the bee box area, if I stay away from the vault goats, none of them can be struck by lightning. I would normally build the pen as far away as the bee boxes. That way I can safely stay away from either area during spring. My bunny farm and my pig farm are sort of neutral areas. Their production isn't really affected by how close I am to them. I just place them near enough that it isn't a bother to walk over whenever I want to farm them. As long as I keep the bunnies walled in, their aggression towards me when I carry meat will not be an issue. I only built this bunny farm a little bit away from my main area because I had the materials to build it before I had the materials to build the fences. But I would have preferred it to be a little bit closer to my main area. My pig farm is pretty close to my main area and I do not wall them in. But as long as the pigs are preoccupied with trying to get to food that they cannot reach, the pigs do not scatter about where I might not want them to go. And even as werepigs during a full moon, they will remain perfectly harmless. My spider farm has a positive and a negative effect if I were to build it close to the main area of my base. The more time I spend near the spider farm, the more productive it will be. I have enough bunnies in here to handle a spider queen whenever it is produced from a tier 3 nest. Before the spider queen is killed by the bunnies, she will leave behind a tier 1 nest to automatically repeat the cycle for me, so I don't ever have to go in there until I want to gather all the loot. But the spiders and the bunnies will only really fight each other when you are near the area. So there are reasons to have this spider farm close to my main area instead of where I built it. But the negative of frequently being close to the spider farm is that spider queens can spawn in the daytime when the bunnies are still in their houses. The queens do not actually spawn unless you are near the area. I knew at the time that this was very likely to happen given how long I've been away from this area. And without all the bunnies around, the spider queen and her spiders can start destroying the walls. It seems like such a small negative, but I already know that just this one spider nest, even if it is far away from my main area, will already produce more than enough loot. So for this world, I chose to build it away from my main area. I did, however, place the spider farm in an area that I pass by from time to time so that the bunnies and the spiders continue to fight each other. In this case, it's located near my cave entrance, which, although away from my main area, is still something that I frequently use. For berry bushes, you can limit the frequency of disease by placing them away from your main area. This is what I did in this other world. Disease is a negative event that will only happen when I am close to the berry bushes. But although placing them far away from the areas that I frequently stay has limited the berry bushes I have lost in this other world, it doesn't completely prevent disease in my experience. I don't exactly know how far you have to be to prevent an event from happening, but in this particular case, I know I've gotten diseased berry bushes by being a full screen away from them and without even seeing any of them on my screen. For hound trap areas, I place them away from everything or on the other side of wormholes. You can protect yourself from the firehounds by placing your trap area in fireproof locations or with the help of flingomatics. But I can't really do that because of all the animals that I keep all around my base. I don't want to risk any hounds spawning near or even inside the animal pens. But I can use my pig farm, which is far enough away from the animal pens, against the hounds as long as there are no firehounds. Using the pigs occasionally for hounds is one of the reasons I do not keep the pigs walled in. That's about everything I consider when I plan the location and the layout of my base. It's almost summer in my world, and one last tip here about the random fires caused by the summer heat. I've never experienced a random summer fire during the first 2 days and the last 2 days of summer. Also, I can stay at my surface base during summer without worrying about fires as long as I'm only here during dusk or nighttime. This is helpful when I forget or suddenly need something from the surface. But although fires do not start when I do this, the crops in my farms can wither and die from my being here during the summer. Random fires during summer are also an event that can only happen when we are near an area, and that is the reason for having a separate summer base. That's all for now, guys. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.